Six Gun Productions. New media, new rules.
This is Hollywood Outlaws, Episode 3, for November 25th, 2018, Blue Religion.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Hollywood Outlaws. This is episode number 3. My name is Dan, and I'm coming to you from Liverpool.
I'm Fab, and I'm sitting in Hamburg, and we're, peek behind the curtain. We're recording this right after the other.
And I'm the one drinking the cheap
episode.
German Pilsner for export only. So I'm drinking the German beer. What's going on? Or apparently we might not be German.
I'm drinking a fine Earl Grey, so we've switched
roles. I've got beer of the week, which is the cheapest thing. Well, it's just the first thing I picked up in Aldi. Other supermarkets are available. So
well, not really.
Not really. Well, there's little. There's little.
Well, yes.
They're kind of related, but anyway. So welcome back. So we're talking about Bosch.
One thing. So before we get into the Bosch thing, right? Lidl, right? So in Germany they're called Lidl, German chain. So
they are in France as well.
When I learned they got over to the UK, right? Mm-hmm. I had it in my head. So as a German, you think it'll be pronounced Lidl? Why is it little? Why isn't it Lidl?
I don't know, because in English that's the way. Yeah. You're right, it should be Lidl because there's one L.
Doesn't make any sense.
One D, sorry, so that would make it a long I. I don't know. We have things like that in England. We do that in the UK. We like to mess with people. Yeah, I don't know. So Lidl, as in, it's quite a popular surname, but it's spelled L-I-D-D.
Oh, Lidl, as in yes.
E-L.
Yes,
so that would be like Lidl, which you're right. But people just
John
say
Lidl from Northumberland.
I can tell you in France they call it Lidl as well. Because
Le Lidl.
Yeah. Anyway. Hockey. Anyway, so they well, greetings to any French listeners. So they do it in France. They call it Lidl.
You know what? I was in Paris a while ago for a wedding, and so I noticed. I'd never noticed this before, but in the metro in Paris, so they say the stop 2 times, and the first time they say it with like an inflection as in a question, and the second time they say it like exclamation. So it's like Bibliothèque François Mitterrand, and then the second time it's like Bibliothèque François Mitterrand.
Maybe they're looking it up at the time, and they're like, and they're saying to the code
so
driver, co-pilot, like,
we're getting there.
Pierre,
we're getting there.
Pierre, yeah, listen up, Pierre. What's this? Yeah, I don't know. My French is really bad. I could just say like où est la station? La station, I don't know. Or La Gare, sorry. It's the station, isn't it?
La Gare. La Gare. Oui, La Gare. Oui.
I'm familiar with the Gare du Nord. Everybody knows that in Paris. Yeah, and the metro. So anyway, enough of underground railway outlaws.
Metro outlaws. Anyway, yes, we are in episode 3 of Bosch.
Yeah,
season 1, episode 3, Blue Religion.
Yeah, interesting. So that does. Well, I've got notes here, but yeah, I'll wait later till I discuss the whole thing about the Blue Religion.
In the books, this is a reference. So Bosch. So they talk about Irving in the books, and they go on about like how he's like he always looks out for the best of the LAPD, And they say how there's like the blue religion. So if you're the police, you're part of the police, and it's this whole mentality of us against them, which in the books, they are set, most of them are set right after the riots.
LA
you know,
riots,
King,
yeah, 91.
The LA riots, and it's like all these us against them stuff. And then later in the books, it's, what's his face? O.J. Simpson. The O.J.
But that
Simpson
was
trial
94, I think, was the OJ.
how
case.
he got acquitted and all
the,
that. And
the
it's-
LAPD had a really bad rap at the time.
Rap,
bad
yeah,
rap, yeah. It's to quote the immortal words of the great philosopher Ice Cube. To get some respect, we had to tear this motherfucker up. The riots. It was a long-going thing. There's the Rodney King business, and people can look this up if they want. But yeah, the police were basically seen as the enemy of the people in LA at the time. Which probably colours the Bosch books quite a lot, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's a lot in the books because it's said at that time, and that's where the whole blue religion comes from. You know, you have the blue religion. I think what it means is like you're a policeman first and foremost. You look out for your own people.
He says it to the guy. Anyway, we'll get onto this later. The bit we alluded to this at the start of the last one. The end of the last episode. One of the first things we see or we hear is Bosch and Edgar are talking, and Bosch says his feet were on the ground. He could have stood up. To which Edgar says, no second thoughts, he's been waiting for this day for 20 years. So, like, the guy's been convicted 25 years ago, whatever it is, of child molestation, and they're basically saying, like, he wanted to kill himself anyway, and this was the excuse, kind of, which is an interesting thing. Then we see the shitheel reporter again, who, I just put the reporter as a shitheel, which we already knew. So if you want to elaborate on that, feel free.
I have said the reporter is back. I'm neutral because, you know, I'm a journalist, so I guess that's like, what's that, like the paper religion? I don't know. So the reporter's back. Bosch is fucked off. For a second, Bosch looks like he wants to deck the guy.
To which Edgar says, leave it, Harry, it's not worth it, or something like that.
He's not worth it.
Yeah, he's
obviously... I think he's baiting Bosch.
Well, he is, because Bosch says to him, you know, you've caused this by printing your bullshit story or whatever, and to which he says to Bosch, but you led me here, so maybe it's your fault or something like that. That's what kicks off a bit of a
so I think he's looking for the LA Times headline, LAPD detective beats on Times reporter.
Yeah. He's not a good example of a reporter, to be honest, I would say. But anyway, since we said on the first episode...
think so?
I don't know. You said on the first episode you were going to get onto the crime beat, so is that something you would do? Go and follow a guy to a house and then print a load of unfounded shit?
Well... To be honest, so let's discuss this. To be fair, so we're talking about the last episode. The reporter says he just printed what's true, right? That's what he says, which is actually what he did. I mean, he's got a nose for a story. Definitely,
he's got a nose for something.
You know, he's definitely
I suppose you're right. I suppose if he did
do.
print that the guy was a suspect, which he was. Then I suppose that's not necessarily... it's whether he editorialized about it or not editorialized. You know, he kind of wrote in some of his opinion as in, this guy's got a conviction and he's really dodgy and it's probably him, which would be bad. We didn't see the story. True.
But like, I mean, this is what happens sometimes with the press. In the end, what he does... net is probably in this case bad because the guy kills himself, right? Because that was in the press and that was bad for him.
Although even Edgar kind of says, doesn't he? The guy's been waiting for an excuse to kill himself. Is effectively what he's saying. So,
and to be fair to the reporter, he does everything what you're supposed to do, right? He has a lead. He follows the lead. He asks the police. he asked them for a statement.
He did. You're right. Yeah.
They don't give him a statement, so he just prints what he knows. It's seriously like we can talk about
being that the thing is being that we don't know what he actually wrote. I suppose it's hard to say.
But like to abstract it, I've been working on stories where
people have killed themselves.
No, but where there were like hacker attacks on companies, for example, right? Yeah. And so you ask the company and the police, and they say we can't say anything due to ongoing investigation. So, and I've been in this position quite a few times in the last few years where I have latest case. So I've been reporting on a hacker attack on a German hoster, right? And I found the guy who said he did it, who was publicly posting about this on Twitter, right? Yeah. And so he's posting about what he did on Twitter. Now I can't verify that it's him, and I can't.
He didn't have a blue
I don't
tick.
know if that's true, right? I don't know what he says it's true, but it sounds plausible. It fits with everything I know, right? So and I can't ignore that. Then I go to like the company and the police, and they're like, whatever, we can't say anything, right? And then you have the problem that the only stuff you can print is like from that other side.
Yeah, it's true. And they have that thing as well. I forget the name of it. You might know the actual name. It's a term that they use a lot in journalism. There's a standard reply that was formulated by the military in sometime in the 70s, I think, in the American military. They didn't want to either confirm or deny that there was a sub in a certain part of Russian, waters, whatever. So they just said, we can neither confirm nor deny that this is the case.
Yeah.
And that's something that reporters, I think, hear a lot, is like, oh, we can neither confirm nor deny that this guy is a suspect, or,
Well, I actually never had that. People say, like, the standard phrase here is like, it's an ongoing investigation, we can't say anything about that. Which, to me, is like really dumb. So, right, there's a guy on Twitter, right? And he's posting about having done this, right? And the police is like, this is an ongoing investigation. Like, address the guy being on Twitter. Like, I don't want. So, the thing I don't want you to do.
Like,
well, I don't want the police to go. It was him. They're investigating this. I know they don't know, but like the company or the police could say, yes, some guy broke into the servers, obviously.
Yeah. Right?
And they're like, no, we can't say they broke into the servers. I fucking know. So, in this case, they had the hacker is like, I wanted to verify that he hacked this hoster, right? And I was baiting him on Twitter. I was like, can you, like, he was like, I'm not going to talk to the press. And I was baiting him. So he sent me my data. So I had been a customer of this hoster like 10 years ago, right? And meanwhile, I'm like on the phone with the hoster, and they're like, no hacker attack happened. And I'm like, he just sent me my customer data from 10 years ago. So how did he get this?
So this is interesting. Being that we're on this, it's called a GLOMAR response. I knew there was a certain thing, a GLOMAR
because of
response.
that, that's the submarine.
It's the American, yeah. So if you want to find out more about that, there's a fascinating episode of, I think it's either Freakonomics Radio or Radio Lab, I don't know, search for GLOMAR response. And it basically says...
this is the GLOMAR Explorer, where they were saying, this was the thing where
Howard Hughes was involved and loads of other people. It's a fascinating
No,
story.
this is like a very famous special operation. So basically, they were saying, so the whole
they were trying to recover a submarine from a Russian submarine.
So the Russians,
but they didn't want to confirm or deny that they were actually trying to recover it, which is weird.
But this story is really fascinating because the Russians had lost a submarine. So I love submarine stories, right?
1975 it was. So
at some point I was researching this whole thing about the manganese nodules.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I was playing like a science fiction game. And they were like, this manganese nodules. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? That sounds like something they made up. And then I looked this up, and apparently this whole craze with like mining the manganese nodules came about because this billionaire, Howard Hughes had built this ship they were basically trying to raise this Russian
sub
Cold
without
War
it being
sub.
obvious, so it had to look like a normal ship that could hover.
They said,
could be over where
not like a normal ship.
So
this thing doesn't look like a normal ship. It looks like a mining ship or whatever.
But it has like an arm that can grab. So it's supposed the idea was it could go. They could without the Russians seeing it, drop the arm underneath and pick up the sub and drag it back into the ship. But the thing is,
they were saying, so as an excuse, they were saying we're mining. The ocean floor, because you can't hide this ship as a normal ship. It looks like a fucking excavation thing, right? And they were like, no, we're mining the sea floor for like manganese nodules. And this actually started like companies. Like this started like a mining craze for this stuff, with companies going like, we need to do this. And like 30 years later, it like comes out that they were actually like, raising a Russian sub, which they actually did, and then it broke apart.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So part of this is actually
it was a CIA project, Project Azorian. It was called under the CIA, which they got Howard Hughes in because he was building a mining ship and converted it to make it this thing to try and get the submarine. Very interesting sort of thing. But actually, just to confirm, it says here Glomar. So they call it Glomar because it was Global Marine was the name of the company that they founded. But it says here, it's information we'll neither confirm nor deny. But it says, for example, in response to a request for police reports on a certain individual, the police agency will often respond with the following: we can neither confirm nor deny that our agency has any records matching your request. Such a response is invariably a true statement, regardless of whether the entity actually possesses the information that you requested in the first place. So it's legally really clever because it's legally not lying, but it's also obscuring stuff in a way. I don't know.
So I never got that. So there was this whole thing recently about canaries, about Apple, if they had lied about those spying ships and stuff, right? So the thing, I don't understand at all. It's like if you look at American intelligence services, right? Mm-hmm. So we know that the CIA killed people, right?
Oh yeah.
So what's that with the thing that they can't lie? You'd think if they could go and kill people, they could just lie.
Well, there's but there's a thing. So you'd have to, I listened to a very long, not very long, hour-long podcast about it, and the reason they did it, I think, was because they didn't want the Russians to know that they knew that the sub was there, and they didn't want them to know that they were trying to recover it. But also something else was going on where they didn't want to confirm that they weren't trying to recover it. I don't know, some weird legal thing where they could later say, well, we didn't lie because what we said was true, which is that we neither confirmed nor denied that we were doing what they said. It was all during the Cold War a bit as well, because 1975, that's prime. But you
Cold
think
War. The CIA would just lie, right?
You would think they would. I would guess. I'm prepared to go on the record as saying I think the CIA have probably lied about things in their history.
I think they have lied. Yes.
Yeah. So hang on, there's just a SWAT team coming through my window.
I just loved that whole story with how they figured out that submarine had sunk, because the Russians had just there was no, we didn't lose the submarine.
They were hadn't lost one.
This one submarine didn't report in. Also, we have this sonar. They had the sonar lines for hundreds of kilometers across the ocean floor, and they heard the pop. Yeah. They heard a pop. They're like, there's no earthquake going on right now. What would make a pop like this? It needs to be TNT or something, under the sea. Something exploded. And then they were looking into, that Russian submarine that, we were watching their subs leaving and entering the harbors and whatever. And this is a submarine it must have been that.
It probably was.
So they knew where the submarine was because of that. They could triangulate where it was. The Russians knew they lost it, but they didn't know where it was.
Yeah,
fascinating.
It is interesting. There's a whole. I'll put a thing on. I'll give you the link. I'll patch it into the show notes to a podcast about it.
Just do a Git commit.
I'll do a Git commit so people can hear more about that. But it's a fascinating story. So we should get into Bosch because we kind of did, and then we didn't.
What are we talking about?
So what we know now? Well, we did a bit. We know that the guy killed himself. That they are not really sure what to make of that. The reporter is, saying he's outside trying to wind Bosch up. I think, as you said, he's trying to get Bosch to kind of lose it with him because then it'll make a good story. Possibly.
He is a shithead, but also he's a good journalist.
Well, the two things are not mutually exclusive.
Sometimes you have to be a shithead to be a good journalist.
Yeah. So in my notes, I may have jumped ahead, I don't know, but Bosch then so I got to the bit where Bosch goes to see, what's her face, Brasher, with flowers. Does he take flowers? No, he doesn't take flowers that time. He takes wine.
No, first we're in prison.
Oh, sorry, right, go on.
So intro, we have that scene with the report or whatever, sequence, then we're in prison. Waits is reading a newspaper story about Bosch's case. Mm-hmm. And then he decides he needs a phone call. So he asks the guy, so in the previous episode, he's seen a guy who's got a phone from a deputy.
Oh, you're right, yeah. And the guy, this is a really funny scene, actually, because the guy says, what's the price to use the phone, this Waits says, and the other guy goes, a blowjob. And he says, well, if you really want to give me a blowjob that much, that's fine, go for it. Or something, he's his response, which is quite good. Yeah.
And he's like, do you have money? And he's like, yeah. And then, what do you need the phone for? It's like, who do you need to call? And
I need to call my mother. Yeah.
This will become, so it's not really unlikely that he actually did call his mother.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
But then we cut to Hollywood Station.
Mm-hmm.
and we have Crate and Barrel, who are investigating Waits.
Oh, how did I miss Crate
looking
and
at-
Barrel? I love those guys. Yeah.
Well, we have this great scene where it's like it's still Christmas, right? It's Christmas.
Oh yes, sorry, I've skipped over a bit. Yeah,
the
go on.
elves.
Yeah,
And then- then-
Edgar says these are snack elves.
Yeah,
And
what's
Bosch
with
says-
the elves? And then they're like, they're elves, and then
Christmas
then
elves,
Edgar goes as if everybody knows, like the Keebler elves.
That's right,
They're like, yes, and Barrow's like, so what's the problem? No, they're not Christmas elves, they're snack elves.
And then Bosch
And then
says,
he
it
goes-
worries me that you know about this shit.
yeah, and then Edgar's like, you don't.
yeah.
But to be
Edgar's
fair,
great. I like
Edgar has kids, so
He does. Yeah, I like Edgar though. Yeah, and then we up to the. I skipped over in my
Yes.
own notes that bit. So then we're up to
We at
Bosch who's going to
Russia's
see
place.
the lady.
with a bottle of red wine.
Yeah, and she says, "You found me," and he's like, "Oh yeah," and then he's his usual smooth Boshness. And then, and actually, there's a bit where they keep going on about the fact that she's younger than him, and that's like often overtly on about it. And then she has a photo of a great white shark that she apparently took, and she says, "Yeah, did you know they have blue eyes like Brad Pitt?" And he says, I would have said Paul Newman. And then he goes, maybe I am too old for you. Just like, yeah.
Why did you go in Clark Gable, Bosch?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. So it seems to be going well. And then Bosch fucks it up by giving her a lecture about her conduct.
Yeah.
And
Completely fucks it up.
And then she says, it's about time for you to leave or something. And he goes, yeah, it is about time for me to leave. And then it's all gone wrong. And then he walks outside and tries, about to smoke a cigarette, then stops himself, which is interesting.
Yeah. I noticed that as well. So that's the cigarette thing as well. So with the shark, right? We that's in the books as well.
All right, cool.
So that's very like the mountain climbing. So we'll see this, but so it's insinuated that she's a bit of a risk taker.
Oh yeah, because she says she was in the cage with the and all that.
Yeah, and she likes to do that stuff. So it's a thing. So apparently, because Bosch went to Mank, she didn't get fired, but she got an unsat.
Yeah, she gets
one,
in. She's still in trouble.
Unsatisfactory thing. Yeah. So if she gets a third one, she probably gets fired.
But all through, I can't remember where this is, but all through this, people are going, really, Bosch, a boot? And he's like, all right, give it a rest. So like everybody knows. Let me just reiterate, everybody knows.
Yeah, well, we come to that because the next scene is there at Trent's house.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so it starts with J. Edgar's, like, I don't know, like, woman stories. He's like on about this chick.
He's going about how he
like
went to
really,
a place with a chick, and then
Yeah,
Harry's
she's,
in a
like,
mood,
really
and he's like,
loud.
I see somebody didn't get any last night or something like that. Yeah.
And then we meet, like, I think it's a crime scene tech. And like she talks to Harry and she says to the guys, like, there's an unopened bottle of Maker's Mark in the liquor cabinet, so
It might cheer you up.
good.
That's right, yeah. And then she goes, seriously, Bosch, a boot? And he's like, Jesus.
So what's that about? Is she saying I saw the bottle and it was closed, so don't think
open
about
it, yeah.
Is that
I think
what
J.
she's
Edgar
saying?
says a shot of that might cheer you up or something.
Might like take the edge
Might
off.
take the edge off, yeah. Interesting one, yeah. So I put down on that one as well, the back at the suspect's house. And then they find that he was donating money to some kind of charities. And then they say...
Like these children's
Yeah,
things,
and he says, and then one of them says, I think it's Bosch, Edgar says, trying to make up for what he did, maybe. And then Bosch is unsure that he's the guy who did it.
I got the feeling that so Bosch thinks that wasn't the guy.
Yeah, that's right. So Bosch is unsure.
But Edgar is a bit like Edgar kind of at this point I think thinks it was him.
Yeah.
It seems like it.
It does seem like it. So next scene I noticed, which I hope is the right one, is where they're in the office with...
I'm sorry, you get the music right, I get the scene.
You're right.
then
Yeah. So are we up to Irv's office?
Yeah.
So they're in Irv's office, and I put down more Dirty Harry vibes in Irv's office as Pounds. He's basically giving some back chat to Irving, and then he almost cuts in and says, "Well, he says Jesus Christ, Bosch," and then he stops. But the bit he doesn't say is, "That's the boss." So, Jesus Christ, Bosch, that's the boss. So more Dirty Harry vibes. But
so basically, I think Irv wants to put a statement out that it was Trent, right?
Yeah, because it'll tie it all up nicely. Yeah.
And Bosch basically says it to him right in, what are you nuts? It wasn't the guy.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to do it. Yeah. So I put down here, Harry won't pin it on the dead guy to make it all look good for the press.
Yeah, and so in the end, Irv goes with Bosch, I guess.
I like Irv. I do like Irv.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a cool guy.
He's cool as hell. That guy, Lance Reddick, we talked about him last time. He's brilliant. He's in so many things, and he's always good. Yeah, so he won't pin it on him. And then, are we back in the courtroom?
Yep, yeah, courtroom.
Yeah.
And it's closing statements.
Yeah.
And I think this is another point where you see how good Chandler is.
Well, she
like
says,
she goes
yeah.
first.
She says Detective Bosch killed Roberto Flores in cold blood. He broke the rules to kill Roberto Flores in cold blood. And
But you wrote this down.
Yeah,
right?
I did. Yeah. Well, he does. And then actually, do you know what I wrote after that? Although his lawyer's not very good, I quite liked his closing statement. It was a bit better than some of the other shit he came up with. So I put down Harry's lawyer is actually quite good. His closing statement is fairly strong.
So I had a closing statement by Chandler. She's good.
She is
Belk
good. Yeah, she is good.
Belk isn't.
He's not as good. No, I'll give you that. But no, he does say some good stuff. He says we can't know that this was a.
But he dwells too much on. I think this is. Watched too much courtroom drama. I think this is. I watched a lot of Picket Fences when I was a kid.
That's a good show.
You know, with Douglas Wombo.
Yeah, classic show.
Douglas Wombo to the rescue, and they keep going on. I ingrained this somehow, like in closing statements. Like, so he's defending Bosch, but he talks too much about shots and, like, you know,
he does.
Like,
he's not great.
You don't do that. You don't call attention to the fact that he killed somebody.
Fair point. Yeah, he's not brilliant, but he was better than he had been previously. I think I put down. He's improving. He's improving. Yeah, so it's not good, but we don't get to hear the actual verdict yet.
Right, we don't get the verdict. We go back to the station. Bosch gets to the station, and I guess Brescher's still pissed.
So I put awkward scene between Bosch and the boot on the walk-in, and he says to the watch guy, "Thanks for not getting her shit canned."
Mank, and he brings him a brioche.
Yeah, that's right. He brings him a brioche.
And Mank's like, I don't know what you're going on about.
Because the indication is, well, Bosch asks him to have a word with Edge, doesn't he? And the implication is that he did have a word with Edge, and Edge wrote
so
it up.
he knows what's going on. Like, Mank's been there a long time, I guess, and
I like all the characters in this, but I like Mank. He's really cool.
Yeah,
he's the one who makes the joke about the humorous and go over and check it out.
That's in the book as well. Yeah. I was like, that they took that straight from the book.
I like him. So he also, the tip line thing, which Bosch helps him with by trying to give more.
So some guy calls in and says it was the extraterrestrials.
Yeah, so he says the people on the phones are going crazy because they're getting all these stupid phone calls as well. But Bosch has helped him out by giving him some more information. He has asked them about injuries, asked them about whatever. And finally, I put down something useful from the tip line. Is what I put next. Finally, a good lead.
After the extraterrestrial guy.
Yeah.
I was like, when I watched this the first time, I'm gonna say I thought this was a false lead.
Yeah.
Because basically, I hadn't read the book, so I didn't know the names. And when he says, like, a lady called in and her name's Sheila Delacroix.
Yeah.
It's like, what kind of a name is that? Is she like Australian? It's like,
yeah. We had a call from a Mr. Seymour Butts.
Yeah. and like the kid's name is like Arthur Delacroix. Like,
that's right,
what kind of who names this kid Arthur? Like in '84? Come on,
Artie. I don't know. Yeah.
But they get like to this thing. It's like, okay, yeah, he had a surgery, like cranial surgery because of skateboarding injury, and you can basically see Bosch's ears pick up at the word skateboard.
That's a big light bulb goes off above his head, and he goes bing. So yeah.
And then the most amazing thing, Mank says to Bosch, you know, you should really talk to Brescher about the gun
after he's just fucked it up with her by saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, by doing exactly that.
And he says something like, maybe I should, or something like that.
Yeah, I should really do that.
Really do that, yeah.
Like, really sarcastic.
Yeah, and then the captain, he speaks to the captain.
No, the lieutenant, Billets.
Yeah, Billets, sorry, Lieutenant Billets. I keep putting the captain. But I put down that she has good advice as usual. So she basically tells him that, so his wife, well, ex-wife and child are in Las Vegas, and she's like, come on, Harry, it's not that far away, you should go and see them. And she says to him, go see the kid, basically, is what she says. But she says specifically the phrase, let some light into your life.
Yeah.
I like her.
Which I guess is
I like
true,
everyone.
yeah.
We've said this already, but I do really like her. She's one of the best characters.
I like how, like, Bosch walks into the squad room, like with everybody sitting there, and she just goes, like, does the 2-finger wave.
Yeah.
And like, oh god, that's the worst thing. Like, you come in the morning, it's like the boss goes, come on, come here.
Beckons you over. Yeah, that's never good, is it? It's never like I'm going to give you a massive bonus. Just thought I'd drag you in to tell you that you're the best employer I've ever had.
Drag you through the squad room and.
Yeah,
I really like the work you're doing, Bosch. I just want to point that out in front of everybody.
Yeah, so this turns out to be an interesting lead because they go to see the woman about her missing child. That's the next scene that I've got down, that they go to identify the kid and see if it's the right one. So they go there and they go to see the mother. And she happens to be in the film industry as well, which I suppose is not that surprising, or TV
No,
industry.
she's not the mother, though.
Oh, right. Well, she says she's a casting
Arthur's
director or something.
Yeah, she's a casting director, but she's Arthur's sister.
Sorry, you're right,
So she was 10 when he disappeared.
And there's the whole business about, like, the mother... So her mother and the other kid, Arthur's mother, left in the night or something, and she says, and she left a note just saying that she was sorry she was leaving and all that shit. Yeah,
a note, and then she says Arthur always kept the note with.
Yeah,
and we learned in the episode before with the backpack there was like a letter they couldn't read.
Yeah,
so you can see Bosch going like he writes down
again. Yeah, Bosch is like ding ding ding.
I also like that before they get like to the door, right? Edgar's like pissed off because he hasn't eaten, and then Bosch
and Bosch says like you should
idea.
eat before you come to work or something. How about you try eating before you come to work or something? He says to him, doesn't he? Workplace banter. That's
not a very cop thing, right? You'd always
stop for donuts or something.
Breakfast in the car, right?
I would have. All my experience as an LAPD detective tells me that I always stop for donuts. And
my badge
and
number 840 right here says, you always stop for donuts.
Yeah. Fab 316 says.
Actually,
yeah. We're getting on to Wrestle Me again, which is awesome. Ass 316.
I think
sorry.
In the book they have this thing about like he goes on about like people like so it's in the middle of like the Ronnie King whatever, people hate the LPD, we talked about that, and then Connolly writes about how like people still bring, like most mornings some citizen will just bring a box of donuts in.
Yeah.
So maybe I just bring a box of donuts in and then ask them if I can see the interview room.
Yeah, here's a box of donuts. Can you now put me in an interrogation room?
Yeah.
How about you interrogate these donuts while I go and check out an interrogation room?
Can you cuff me for a selfie?
Yeah. And if they try and get you, you can just go, I'm only a salty boot. That's how they take you away. Leave me alone, I'm only a salty boot. Yeah, so he goes to the... so Harry then goes to... sorry, I'm on the wrong bit here. I've skipped again, forward. Captain gives good advice.
Yeah, basically she tells the story, she was... Oh, it says... Oh, I got this wrong, not 10. She was 16.
Yeah.
When Arthur disappeared. So she says to her dad reported her missing. She says the TV casting director. I wrote down weird vibe, so I'm getting a weird vibe from her.
She's a bit weird. Yeah, she is suspicious. I don't know if that's the way they've shot it or what, but she seems a bit, something
Bosch
odd.
is a lefty. He writes down.
Yeah.
So basically we get a this wasn't a good family life, right? We got so she hates her mom because she ran away, but she doesn't like her dad either. So he lives in a trailer park now because he drinks.
Yeah. And she says he doesn't look like. She shows him the headshot thing because he was an actor.
He used to be an actor.
And she says he doesn't look like that anymore. He's old and drunk and whatever.
So Bosch asks her about the backpack. She can't remember. Shows her a picture of the backpack. She can't remember that. But when he shows her a picture of that starfish, she says like it's his favorite thing. He got that from her mother and never left. He kept it. He always took that with him.
It's quite sad, that bit, actually. And then
I wrote down sounds like a lovely family because she's like Edgar's like, is that from a family vacation? It's just like we didn't do it, things like that.
Yeah, there's a suspicious vibe going on about the whole family, isn't there? Definitely. So the next bit I got was when Bosch goes to some dinosaur park thing
this is I looked at, I researched LA a bit because I'm going there. This is La Brea Tar Pits.
I've heard of La Brea, the road.
So there's
very famous
tar
road.
pits in the middle of LA where they've been excavating like dinosaur bones
And the doc is there for
50
some
years
reason. Because
he's there because he's an anthropologist and he's excavating. They're excavating a skeleton. They're going on about how there was a serial killer here because
this is a skeleton.
6,000 years ago. Because they're going about or 9,000 years ago, how that skeleton has the same injury as the kid.
So something I wrote down, which I thought was significant, I mentioned it in the last episode actually, and we didn't get to it in that, was they keep going on about how Bosch is like a dinosaur who doesn't belong in the department anymore. And there's an interesting bit where I thought it might be significant because he stops and looks at like these mammoth type things, they're models in the tar, and he's looking at them, and you wonder if this is kind of like he's thinking, am I a dinosaur or what? And it made me think of that whole thing with Pound saying you should put in for your pension, Harry, we don't need people like you anymore. And it's interesting. Just before he meets the doc, you think, I don't know, I just wondered if that was a significant
I didn't catch that,
note.
but yeah, you're probably right.
Because he looks at the tar
like
bubbling, and then he looks
yeah.
at the other things, and he kind of stands there for a minute, and he's like looking at it, and I thought, maybe he is the dinosaur. Maybe
thinking about the morning when he couldn't use the touch screen on the phone.
He's probably like thinking, God, I'm really glad I ate before I came to work. Or something.
Stars make me angry.
They get into religion.
Could do with a brioche right now.
Yeah. The doc talks about the skull, and he basically says he thinks it is the victim that they're looking for.
Yeah, so he compares, they got the medical record of records of Arthur Delacroix, and he compares that to the pictures he took of the skull.
Yeah.
And then also he asked Bosch for a picture of the kid, and he just looks at I thought this was bullshit, but at first, but then I think I was thinking back, and I think I read about something like there's some kind of like, how these like medical anthropologists, they look at skulls and they can look at pictures of people, and there's like certain bone structures that you can see, and he's like, this could match. I'm not 100% sure, but I think if we do DNA analysis with the sister, we'll figure out that this is your guy.
Yeah, which is interesting. And then they get into a bit of more of a religion talk. Well, Bosch actually says to him, doesn't he? He says, asked me the other day if I had any kind of religion, and I said, no, that wasn't the truth. I got my own kind of faith, blue religion. And he says, and this is really kind of ominous, it's almost like a Batman statement. He says, those bones came out of the ground for a reason, for me to find them, so I could make some part of this right. And I just wrote deep. I was like, deep cuts from Bosch.
This is very the books as well. With novels being, books being books, there's lots of interior dialogue that you don't get in a TV show, right? So there's lots of Bosch thinking, like, sitting with a beer on his deck, or smoking and thinking about stuff. And he has this thing where he doesn't really believe in, he doesn't believe in God or whatever, but he believes in, like, I don't know, some kind of weird kind of thing of like destiny almost. Like he says this in City of Bones quite a few times, or he thinks this is like, these bones came out of the ground for a reason.
Yeah,
like,
so I could find them or something.
The dog found them for a reason.
That's right. You're right. Yeah.
So my mission is like, so he sees himself as like, there was the German TV show which I really liked about the coroner with Ulrich Mühe.
Das Quincy. Sorry. Das Quincy.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Natural causes?
Ich
glaube nicht.
That was really bad. I went into like a weird Italian voice there. Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
Ich glaube das nicht. No,
Nein.
Sorry, 999. That's my phone
Natural
number.
causes 9.
That's my extension. 999. Yeah. So it was der letzte Zeuge. The last. God, what's that? When somebody sees.
I'm lost. Go on. When somebody sees.
When somebody.
A witness.
A witness, the last witness. So it was called. The show was called The Last Witness because he was like the witness. You say that about coroners, like the witnesses of the dead.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's how Bosch sees himself as well.
But they push that a lot in this show, and probably you can say more. Probably it sounds like in the books as well.
Yeah,
the whole thing that Harry's trying to avenge his dead mother, and also that he's in a children's home. He was brought up in a children's home, and he's got this real thing about him. He's kind of his mission in life is to bring these people to justice and. In
the books, you realize very early on that he is not avenging his mother. He thinks, like, he doesn't say that so much as it's like interior that he he doesn't avenge his mother. He wants to avenge people like his mother. He wants to avenge people that can't talk for themselves because they're dead and they didn't have any friends that cared for them. You know, like that kid. You know, there was nobody looking for that kid.
Yeah, you're
right. So he's like, they only have me, and you're right. It's quite Batman. It's like that's my mission in life, you know.
Although
I'm the avenger of these people.
Yeah. Although what you said about the internal monologue thing, the difference between books and a novel and a TV series, it'd be a bit shit if he'd had, you know, because some TV series will do that thing where like the character will stop and then you hear their inner voice. It'd be a bit shit if Bosch was like, I got to avenge this kid because you know it wouldn't really work, would it? Let's be honest.
No, but I think they bring this across. Like even if you haven't read the books, I think Titus Welliver does a great job of just with his face.
Yeah, he's a good actor.
Like there are these scenes where he isn't talking. Yeah. There's like the scene with the dinosaur where you just see him, or somebody talks and they just cut to his face, and he does that thing he does where he kind of like. He does this thing, so look out for this. He does this thing that only Titus Welliver does as Bosch, which is this. He smiles, but it's not a smile. It's like this pained. You know what I mean? It's like he does that quite a lot. He does like this pained smile. It's like he looks like not the actor, but like the character is pretending to smile.
Yeah, but he's
actually he's hurting inside.
Yeah, he's good. He's a very good actor. So I don't know. You're going to have to confirm this for me now. So I had the next scene is like he meets Irv and Irv asks him to go and interview the guy in the prison. Is that right? The one who's confessing to all the other murders or the ones that he's working on.
No, at first, so they're back at the station and what we get is that, so Sheila said her dad filed a missing persons.
Yeah.
And Edgar says he looked this up and nobody filed a missing person on this kid. And then Bosch says something, and this goes more like what we were just talking about, Bosch's emotional connection to the case. He says like blah 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 Arthur something, and then Edgar just looks at him and Bosch is like, what? And he's like, you don't usually refer to the victim by their first name.
Yeah, which is again a thing of his connection to them. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and they figure out, they track down the mom who now lives in Palm Springs and is married again. And then we have the DA says he wants to see Bosch.
That's right, yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I thought Billet said Ricochet.
She does, yeah. Like, she says something about Ricochet, yeah.
That must be his nickname because his name is Rick O'Shea.
Oh, right, got you. Yeah, that's quite good.
You know,
I thought
Richard
that was like...
O'Shea.
He's bad at shooting or something, I don't know.
He's the DA, and we know this guy. The actor is well known. If you've seen like Jack or something, he's a well known actor. What's his name? Robert Culp, I think. Yeah, no, not Robert Culp. Something Culp. God, now I have to look. I should have wrote this down.
It's all right. That's the haunting sound of keyboards, which people like.
Yeah, the haunting sound of my Stephen Culp. Stephen Culp.
Yeah.
So he was in Jack, and he's like the DA, and he's like, okay. So the Escobar's their deputy, and they're basically saying, you know, Bosch, you know this Waits guy, and Bosch is like, well, Crate and Barrel. Although he Johnson and whatever their real names are, but he says like
just call him Crate and Barrel. I've got to be honest, and I was going to say this in the last episode, but you know this already, if you've heard the other episodes. I'm really into Crate and Barrel. I think they're amazing, and I've got to be honest. I'd love to see a spin-off about Crate and Barrel because sometimes when there's
like
another scene going on,
Soul.
I think to myself, what are Crate and Barrel doing up now? I reckon they're up to semantics that we're not getting to see. I really want to see.
Yeah, like later on when they're like, you know, when they solve like there's this whole guy, whole murder.
That's right.
Like
yeah, they solve a massive
side plot,
case,
and they solve that.
Yeah. But it makes me wonder, like, could we have a spin-off series where we get to see what Crate and Barrel are doing in the scenes where we just don't get to see what they're doing?
So they are not in the books, as far as I can tell, not yet. But like, I love how they like, you know, they solved that case by just having a traffic accident, basically.
Yeah, they drive into the guy. Yeah. And knock him off his bike. Anyway, but that's spoilers for later on. Yeah. And then are we up to the bit where there's a bit where he meets Irv and Bosch? Bosch meets Irv at some point.
So basically, they're in the DA's office, and so basically they tell Bosch that Waits confessed to that murder, and Bosch is immediately skeptical. He hasn't heard anything about that.
Yeah.
But he's basically saying, no, this guy must be full of shit. I'm on the news, right? This case on the news. You got everything like
From the news.
he's from the news, and then he says, and I quote, "That's a big coincidence, and I'm not buying it."
Yeah.
And I wrote down Quincy voice.
I don't buy it. Yeah.
He's doing a total Quincy voice. I don't buy it.
He doesn't buy it, no. Yeah.
The guy's playing a game or something, or running a game.
He says he's running a game, yeah.
And then he says, I don't make this deal, because,
He's lying. Yeah, are we now up to the bit? I missed some bits here, as you can tell. So I noticed the bit where basically Irv tells him to go and punch some holes in the guy's story, because he doesn't believe it either. Or blow some holes in the guy's story.
We're back at the station. We see Bosch get out of his car. He sees Brasher in the mirror getting off work. He still doesn't talk to her. And then they're talking about. So he's begging. He's now basically taking the case or consulting on the case. He and Edgar are talking to Crate and Barrel about this Waits guy, and they're saying, "Well, look, we tried to track him down. He has like this business and this apartment since '94. We found some receipts. So it seems like he has a legit window washing business
for which he needs he needs a bag and a taser or something, was it?
Right. They're going on, but he says like the victims from Hollywood, Waits from Hollywood. Why did we pick him up in Echo Park? And Bosch goes like, if you want to dump the body, there's like a closer park somewhere. It doesn't go to Echo Park. And then they figure out there's nothing on Waits before '94. He apparently applied for a driver's license in '94, and then Edgar said, well, he needed to have like a birth certificate. It's like, yeah, we checked that. He said he was born in Hollywood in like this hospital, but don't have a record. And Bosch is like, okay, this guy's fake, right? His birth certificate is fake. His name must have been fake. And that's basically the stuff they come up with. Then they at the coroner's office.
I think I must have walked out of the room for about 5 minutes because I missed a load of scenes. Yeah, go on.
So basically, he says to Crate and Barrel, has the coroner called yet? And they say no, and he's like, you mind if I go over there? And no, they're like, no, go for it. Yeah. We're having a sandwich.
Yeah, because they're busy. Because their whole spin-off show would be like Crate and Barrel get lunch or something.
Yeah, exactly. Crate and Barrel get a burger. Yeah. So they go to the coroner. It says, okay, when we found that guy in the van, he was dead 4 to 8 hours.
Yeah.
So I was writing. I was like, he was cruising like with for a second Vic.
With a
he has
rotting, well, not rotting, but already quite
but
well dead.
That
corpse.
guy in the van, and he he's greedy, right?
Yeah.
He's getting greedy. And then now we get the whole thing like the victim was raped.
Yeah.
Apparently post-mortem with, I quote, a metallic foreign object.
Oof, nasty.
So I think this points to Waits as well, because I think there's this thing with people who are like, killers who are like, they do gay rape things, but they don't think of them.
Yeah, but they have a
gay.
thing about it. So often, all my psychological knowledge here, but from watching a lot of serial killer things and stuff, often people I think Ted Bundy used to do that as well. And it's this thing about they hate themselves because they probably are gay and they want to eradicate gays and punish them and something weird like that going on. I don't know.
Because they are themselves.
Yeah. And they're trying to, I don't know, eradicate it by killing other people in a nasty
So I think this points to Waits.
Yeah, do you still think he's hot after all this? I'm gonna find out. I've got to ask. I don't think he's quite as hot.
He's good looking. Like the fact that he plays a killer doesn't really change that the actor is good looking.
No, but I mean, the whole bag over the head and taser thing is one thing, but when he starts producing a mag light, I'm going to be like, oh, hold on there, cowboy.
Hey, they didn't say it was a mag light. Don't get
I know.
We'll get sued by mag instruments.
I was like, is that a mag light? Anyway, so let's go.
I'm just happy to see me.
Oh, is that the sixth cell?
Shots fired.
Anyway.
And now Bosch gets called to Irving. Now, I was like, I wrote down at dinner, question mark.
Yeah,
because
they're in a restaurant or something. Or
he's sitting in a restaurant. There's like slow jazz playing, right? It's like the table's decked out and full, but it seems like the only thing Irvin is having is a scotch.
Yeah.
And he asks Bosch if he wants a drink, but it's light outside.
Yeah,
Like
Irv's
it
a
looks like
badass,
it's
isn't
12 o'clock.
Irv just gets driven round by his driver in a ridiculously oversized car so he can get a scotch and then
think that's a Taurus.
summon people to him, you know. Yeah.
Didn't they have those in 24? I think, yeah. No, Taurus is the town car.
Oh, it's
What's
a
that
huge
car? It's like some Ford SUV that all like the special agents drive. They have that
It's
in
ridiculous.
Homeland.
It's like a pickup with an SUV attached to it.
Yeah, they have that in 24 all the time.
I call it a Tony Soprano car. He used to drive a car like that, which was unfeasibly large. Although any Americans listening will be like, "Oh, what's with the Europeans and the small cars?" But you know, I think
Hey, I'm renting.
You don't need a
I'm
tank.
renting a Mustang over there, mate.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. Well, the Mustangs is, you know, I could get down with that, but you don't need to rent a Hummer or something, do you? Let's not be stupid about it.
I know. I'm going to America. Like, you know, when in Rome.
I'd get a Cadillac, although they're unreliable pieces of shit, I'm told.
That's well, it's a rental. You know, I'll just ring up. My car broke
I've left
down.
it somewhere outside San Diego. I'm getting
It's
on a plane.
outside Vegas.
Yeah, outside Vegas in the desert.
I just ditched the cab.
Yeah, I've Ubered it back to wherever.
It broke down just when the drugs started to take hold.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Hunter S.
You know, I'm
Thompson.
doing that drive. I'm really looking, you know, Vegas to LA. I'm really looking forward to that drive.
Take I was going to say a boot. Take a trunk if you're in America full of drugs with you, because that is essential if you're going to Vegas. And your attorney, of course. All right, and yeah.
I will not, you know, this show might go out before I go over there. You know,
well, probably just as well as it does if like TSA are listening, really. Big TSA.
I might release that afterwards, to be honest.
Yeah.
Although I'll just get through the TSA control with my badge, you know.
Oh yeah, of
And
course.
IPD.
Shouting, "I'm a salty boot, leave me alone." So yeah, and then so Smooth Bosch is back. So Bosch goes to see Brasher with some flowers because he's obviously trying to make up with her.
Oh yeah, which he picked up from a homeless guy.
And he just
at,
says
like,
to her something like,
traffic
"So are we
light.
good?" And she's like, "Yeah, we're good." And then it's back on again, and you're like, "Wow, okay, fair enough."
We're skipping over something though.
Go on, what are we skipping over?
So we learn in the Irvin scene. We learn that the police uses the term the C word for closure for the victims.
Oh yeah, and he says there's no such thing as closure. Or was he say closure is overrated, or there's no such thing as closure?
Yeah, so we get the thing. So we learn that O'Shea, sorry, what?
It's an Irish name.
Yeah, he's running for mayor.
Yeah,
and so the thing is.
Good.
We learn later. Edgar says so he doesn't like Irving. So the problem is Irvin says this as well. When he becomes mayor, so Irvin says the LAPD is going to be in trouble because he's going to put them on the microscope. But we learn later from Edgar that the problem is actually that. So Irving is deputy chief. He wants to become chief, and when O'Shea becomes becomes mayor, then he will never
can move
become
up.
chief.
Yeah.
So they're in a battle. So now we're at Brasher's.
Yeah, and then that works very
Shots
quickly.
fired.
Yeah. Shots fired again because, as I said, Bosch just goes, "So we good?" And she's like, "We're good." Next scene, they're in bed again, and
They
Bosch
drop the
starts. Bosch starts to tell. I put down here. Smooth Bosch is back. He tells his war stories in bed, and again she says it's kind of sexy. And I put down everything Bosch says apparently works. He's like, "So that's a bullet hole I got from so and so," and she's like, "God, that's kind of sexy."
What I noted from this is he brings flowers, right? And you'd think this is the most stereotypical, this
Kind
will
of
never
is,
work,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Kind of is.
It is. It completely is. But it always works.
Yeah, it does.
And
it does for Bosch.
No, it does. It works. I can tell you
right,
from
okay,
experience. So this is the thing that you fall into when you're a guy, right? You think, especially when you're like us, you geeks, you think about things, right?
Yeah.
You're an emotional, you're thinking man, and you think well, this is not gonna work. This is the most
cliche thing.
cliche worst thing you can do, right? And then it works. It does work. The fucking flowers work every fucking
Right,
time.
okay. Hang on, let me write that down.
It's ridiculous.
Flowers work every
It does. They do work.
See, I'd
Anyway,
turn up
so-
with the guitar and play like Romeo and Juliet outside. You
Well,
know, like
that
Dire
would
Straits.
work as well.
That could work as well if you
That
can
would work as
play it well. Yeah,
Just need a steel guitar.
yeah you do. So so Bosch and Brasher are good.
So he doesn't. He almost tells the story how he lost his tattoo on his knuckles. But I think we learn that later.
Mm-hmm.
That's. I think we actually see that, right?
No, I don't know. Now you're asking. I don't know.
Well, shall I just quickly talk about that?
Yeah, go
in
on,
case
go
I
on,
never-
go on.
So it's so in the books it's like so. I think we learn about that later. So when Bosch was really young, he ran away from like the
home, yeah.
the institution he was in, and he was like 16 or whatever, and he got a tattoo. He got hold fast on his knuckles.
That's right. Yeah.
Which he really liked, but it's like a sailor tattoo.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the sailors have that. You know, hold fast to the ship
Yeah,
so
to
you
the-
don't fall
yeah.
off. And then he joins the army. And his drill sergeant is like, I'm not gonna have like one of my guys have like a squid tattoo on his fingers.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes him out, and for like consecutive nights,
Yeah.
he makes him punch like a brick wall
Ow.
until his knuckles are like, I think in the book he says are like raw hamburger, and then they scab over,
Yeah.
and then the guys like do it again.
Ouch.
So that's
That sounds
how
like the
he
guy
got
from
rid
Full
of
Metal
that.
Jacket. that's
That's how he got. So like in the books, it's before the Vietnam War.
What is
So,
your
you know,
major malfunction, Bosch? Anyway. So,
So
yeah.
back then, you know, it is like Full Metal Jacket time frame, I guess.
Yeah,
in
it would
the
be.
books,
Yeah, it
but
would be. It's only
but
two
so
things
that's
come
how
from
he got-
Texas, son. Steers and queers. And you don't sure as hell don't look like no steer to me. I love that guy. He was a real
So
drill
that's-
sergeant. Anyway, you can read
that's
about
how
him.
he got rid of the tattoos. And well, we see that Brasher, and this is in the books as well, is really fascinated by his bullet hole. It's like, how did that feel?
Yeah, she
and
keeps
shit.
asking him about it. She's got a real thing about like guys who've been shot, apparently.
Yeah. Well, I think she's got a thing about like adrenaline.
Maybe.
You know,
Oh, yeah, because
being
of the
shot
danger,
is-
yeah, and the sharks, and yeah, I see what you mean.
And he talks about like getting shot in the drainage tunnel, which is you know where the movie was made. You know that is Black Echo.
Black Echo,
That's in the book. Actually, he.
Oh no,
in the
she
book,
says, "Did you catch the guys?" And he says, "I caught the one that shot me," or something like that. But he
bank
didn't
robber.
catch
So
other
in
guy.
the book, it's him and Eleanor Wish. He actually meets her in the first book.
Okay.
She's investigating the bank robbers, and he gets into that, and he's like, "That's the whole Vietnam War tunnel rat connection."
yeah,
The guys in the book, the bank robbers are ex-tunnel rats, and he figures that out because he was a tunnel rat, and that's how they find them.
and because they've updated
then-
it, he talks about like how he was in Afghanistan or whatever it was, and he's like
In the
in the
yeah,
tunnel,
in
and he's like,
tunnels,
you turn your light off when you're in the tunnel and all that shit.
Yeah, and so in the books it's like that's he then follows them from the vault into the drainage tunnel, and then he gets shot. Yep.
So,
And-
are we up to the prison yet then?
Yeah, Bosch and Edgar are driving to the prison. Edgar, we learn, has real estate problems. He says, you don't care," and then tells him the story. And Bosch like,
He says to him, "You
Right,
haven't got
I
as
don't
big a
care.
nut as me," which is a slang for like how much he's got to pay out. I think in maintenance or something.
I think not to crack. Yeah, I mean, so Edgar has a family. Like he has this real estate shit going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
and then they interview Waits.
Yes. Who it seems has a weird fascination with Bosch because he tells Bosch that he remembers him from when he pulled him over in
Yeah.
black and white, and then he says he's trying to push Bosch's buttons is what I put down because he starts going on about Bosch's childhood and he's like, oh, that must be really hard for you, and but the things that are trying to rattle his cage basically.
And also he has a weird fascination with angels because he has, state your name for the record and where you're from, and he's like born in the city of angels.
That's right, yeah.
And Bosch like said Los Angeles, and then he's like, yeah, that's Los Angeles, and it's like really weird. I also like how he tries to rattle Edgar, right? He
does, yeah. He goes,
doesn't-
how he speaks or something when Edgar
Yeah,
says
no.
something.
At first he's like, doesn't he let you ask any question? Are you just a sidekick? And Edgar's just like stone cold, like, fuck off.
Yeah, and then later on he says, "Oh, he speaks," when Edgar says something, and then he says he took them to his special place. I took him to my special place, which is creepy as hell. And then they're like, "Why is it a special place?" And he can't really explain. Edgar keeps pushing him. I put punching holes in his story. And Bosch follows in.
That's what Irvin says they should do, because he doesn't want O'Shea to solve like 2 serial killer things in one go,
and Bosch follows him in and basically starts punching holes too. And he's like, "Well, you don't seem to, they say your first kill's very special, and you can't remember how you did it." And then he's like, "Well, I don't remember." And then like, "Well, what about something else?" They ask him about the backpack, or they ask him about a yo-yo. What color was the kid's yo-yo?
He first says he strangled the kid, and that would obviously be wrong because we know he's been killed by a blow.
Yeah.
But then I think he sees in Bosch's face that was wrong.
Yeah.
And then he pulls himself back, and then Bosch makes up the thing with the yo-yo, and then he says he didn't remember the yo-yo. So it all points to the fact that he didn't kill the kid, right?
Yeah, and it's all shit he could know from reading about it, basically.
Right. And then Bosch basically turns the tape off and says, like, I've
written it down. He says, "I'm too old of a cat to be fucked by a kitten." And then he says later, "Nothing out of that shitbird's mouth was true."
Well, and then he writes his phone number on his arm. And he says, if you remember, because he's in prison, right? Everything else will get taken from him. And then he's like, if you remember anything that wasn't in the paper, give me a call.
Yeah.
But then before he leaves, Wade just says,
something about
he had the starfish. Yeah. And you can see in Bosch's face, like, what? And then they're outside, you see Bosch going, shit. And then he gets the smoke from the deputy, and this time he smokes it.
He does.
Doesn't smoke the whole cigarette, but he smokes it. And so basically he says, Wade's full of shit. He says, I haven't been in the black and white in 22 years.
Yeah.
So
it's that way he remembers me, is what he's saying. But Edgar seems more convinced. Edgar keeps saying about the starfish. How do you know about the starfish?
He
but
says
Bosch says he doesn't buy it.
That was in 94. Is when Waits was on the map, and he says his first kill was in 94. That was Arthur Delacroix. And we're in, I think, 2014 or 15 when this is set. So 22 years couldn't have been Bosch.
No.
Right.
It's an odd one, yeah. And also, the bit I took from it basically was that Edgar's more convinced, and Bosch is like, nah, he's got that from somewhere else.
Bosch is like, he's full of shit. But Edgar ain't so sure. Edgar's like, how does he know about the starfish? And Bosch can't explain that. But he's like saying, he says, I'm not buying it. I don't know his angle, but I'm not buying it.
That's it, yeah. And then credits, pretty much.
Credits
roll, yeah. So, the plot thickens, the case deepens, I don't know.
So this, in the book, this whole angle with Wade isn't in there at all.
Oh, right.
So they're just investigating, the Sheila Delacroix thing and the stuff that comes later. But this whole Raynard Wade's thing is not in the book at all. I guess that's from Echo Park. But I kind of like how they've weaved that in. I mean, it feels natural, right? If you watch
it does, yeah, totally. I think it makes it more interesting. Maybe they didn't think there was enough in the other story that they wanted to have other things going on.
Yeah.
Although I certainly think they could have told us more about what Crate and Barrel were up to. And what's Irv up to, driving around in his fancy car, getting driven around, drinking scotch.
I think we get to Irv a lot in next season.
You do.
Irv is becoming a massive
the sun becomes
character.
a big part of it.
Yeah. And
it's true.
Irv is politicking. And I guess Crate and Barrel are just
Crate and Barrel are just accidentally running people over and solving massive cases while on their way for burgers or something.
Sandwiches.
Which is partly why I love them so much, because they accidentally solve these mad crimes.
Yeah, good. I mean, what I really like, if we get to the later seasons, what I like about them is you have more. So this is more like on the case. Yeah. In the later seasons, you have more like what seems like routine work. You have like this. What's this guy? Bosch's partner. The Mexican guy.
Oh yeah.
So
you're right.
So the one. The
guy who used to work with Edgar.
Right. No. The guy who is on patrol with Irving's kid.
Yeah. That's right.
That pull Waits over. He later becomes a detective, and Frankie Sheehan, that's his name, and he's different in the books as well. But like in the show, he becomes like the junior partner of Sheehan, and they go like on some cases, and you see.
But then there's
how
a bit of
they,
a rivalry going on.
do
We're getting
stuff.
way ahead here, but there's a rivalry, isn't
Yeah.
it? Because the Mexican guy doesn't like Bosch, and he's like doesn't
Right,
trust Bosch,
yeah.
and he thinks
Yeah.
he's a reckless, he shoots everyone for no reason. And but then Bosch Edgar goes to him because Edgar knows the Mexican guy used to work with him or something. He knows him better. And he tries to say Harry's okay.
I also like how he's Mexican because, like in the book, he's not described, but his name's Frankie Sheehan. You think like he's an Irish guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
you would think so. Yeah.
I like him, like how they show more like routine work in the later seasons.
There's a whole bit
also
of
for
Crate and
Bosch
Barrel
as well.
just answering phones, if I remember rightly,
Yeah.
which is that's the shit for me. I'm like, give me an hour of Crate and Barrel answering phones, I'll watch that. I'm like, yeah, while Earth drives past the window
We
occasionally. in
should
his
pitch
big
that.
car.
Like
Yeah.
if I do I have you okay? If I'm in Hollywood and I meet
do it, man.
Titus Welliver by accident,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pitch him our idea, which is Crate and Barrel.
Crate and Barrel.
Spin-off show, Crate and Barrel.
Yeah, get lunch.
It's a good title
Crate
for a
and
show
Barrel,
as
get
well.
lunch or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Crate and Barrel. This time it's personal. Or I don't know, something.
The first episode will be called
the hamburger,
like
hamburger
fish in a
conundrum.
barrel.
Oh, like fish in a barrel. That's quite good. I was thinking each one would be like a food thing because all they do is eat. So it'd be like the hamburger conundrum, or that's not good. The chicken conundrum. I don't know, something like that. And then they.
This is like Poirot episode names, like the mystery of the Keebler elves.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that would work. All right, then. So we'll work on that. You can pinch that when you get to Hollywood. So if you want to send us feedback, you can do to feedback@sixgun.org is the email address, which will fire up a GitHub thing. And then GitLab, not GitHub. That was a bad slip. That was a bad slip.
Freedom.
Yeah. And then if you're on GitLab already, you can you can find us there.
There'll be a link in the show notes at sixgun.org/ho. There'll be show notes there. There'll be a link to issues where if you have good ideas for episodes with, Crate and Barrel episodes.
Can we get? Hang on. I'm just sorry. I'm extending the show.
What
here,
we
but
need is a contributor license agreement so we can sell them later.
What I want to see if Hacksaw Jim Duggan's still alive. Here we go. He is still alive. So because his famous thing was he just go ho all the time. So we could have him go to sixgun.org/ho. That would work really well.
So if I meet Hacksaw Jim Duggan in
if you could
Hollywood-
also, when you finished with Bosch and Titus Welliver, you could nip over and have a word with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. That would be brilliant.
although he lives in Lugoff, South Carolina.
Yeah, it can't be that far away. It'll be fine.
According-
It's only on the other side of the country.
His wife's name is Deborah Duggan.
Debbie Duggan, yeah.
Debbie Duggan.
Yeah. His real name was Jim Duggan, apparently.
James Edward Duggan Jr. Saw Jim. He never I never got why is this gimmick a plank?
He wasn't a good wrestler. He wasn't a great
Why isn't it a hacksaw?
That and we were alluding to another podcast here, but I like to call him damage limitation Jim Duggan, which is what they call him, where he has to come out with a Stars and Stripes thing on to try and make everyone not be too upset that the show's too anti-American. So and here he is, damage limitation Jim Duggan, coming out in a
What I really liked was when he was King Duggan.
King Duggan. Yeah.
You know, they're going on about his 2x4 had a little crown as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't the best of wrestlers. Anyway, so now that we've got onto wrestling, we should probably say, if you want to find us on Twitter, at HW Outlaws, you can find us on Discord. Again, links are in the show notes. We need to thank Bitemark for hosting us and paying for the hosting, which is awesome. And we also need to thank the Bourbon Boys for our
Paying for
amazing
this
intro.
crap. Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's about it. So are we good? Ho! Are we good to go?
We're code 7. I'm nipping over to Musso and Frank's for a martini.